Hi, this is János. It is Real World Audio, and I'm taking you on an adventure today. So I'm going to uh, explore with you the brief history of audio gear, of how we started out with a stereo, and now we ended up with endgame as a desirable dream for audiophiles worldwide. And actually, I think this is just how I see the history of audio. If you think differently, please by all means share in the comments. I'm really curious what were your experiences. But why I'm doing this is because the terminologies in audio to describe audio gear are making less and less sense. And at this time, we are talking about the 50s, uh, when we had a stereo. It says the adventure starters. That's where the adventure started, because now you had, instead of one speaker, you have two speakers in a console. But when you have it in this fashion that they are right next to each other, it's almost meaningless. Not getting any stereo image out of it when you have the two channels next to each other. So basically the only gain from mono was that now you have two speakers, you doubled the surface that moves air, so your bass extension is lower. So initially when we changed from mono to stereo, there was almost zero gains in imaging, but there was a gain, significant gain in the depth of reproduced music. So the bass was quite substantial, more substantial than from a single drive or single speaker. However, what a sensible audiophile would do is essentially, if you had a mono, which is just half of this cabinet, if you put it in your room correctly and you use your room to load your single mono speaker, then you can have better bass extension from that single channel compared to two channels placed improperly in the room. So of course we can say that this was something that at that time, when you went for stereo, really, if you were an audiophile, it was a step back from you, for you. There was a drop in many areas, especially like in the early days of stereo. If you record the same material in stereo versus mono, the main difference when you're listening to this type of equipment is that with mono you have double the bandwidth for dynamic range on a tape. So essentially with stereo you have your dynamic range, you have more tape hiss that's coming through the stereo recording compared to mono, and decreased dynamics. And with this sort of setup, we are not gaining imaging yet. There's no soundstage present in the room, but what you can see is kind of like left side, right side. There's some interplay, but that's like total gimmicks BS from the standpoint of someone who wants connection to music. This was already just a show, a superficial show to catch, you know, the attention of consumers, to open up their wallets, to give more money for to change their mono systems for stereo. So I think this was already something that showed that there was potential in it, but how it was marketed to people, how it was used, it was kind of like just a waste of money, I think, at that time. But they made for really excellent advertisements. And same thing continues, of course, the obligatory pretty ladies in the ads. They were always present, but just much better than today's like industrial looking alien photos of just gear alone. So no human components today in the present day. Stereo ads is just gear porn, and then just forget about your girlfriend or wife. She's not in the picture. Don't even tell her how much it costs. They shouldn't know about it, otherwise they just divorce you, right? So after that, So when we had, let's just wind back to the stereo era. So then, like, owning a stereo was like, wow, do you have a stereo? No, I just have a mono. Come on, it's outdated. It's crap. So it was already also an elitist thing to have a stereo, but also it was a hallmark when you purchased the mono equipment in the stereo era, that probably you were maybe like a musician, like a violinist or someone, or just like who would buy a mono, like, wow, there's something with you if you just like dedicatedly seek out something like that, or you didn't have enough money to purchase a stereo. But two went hand in hand. So you didn't have to be someone who can't afford a stereo. Maybe you were on purpose getting a mono, but it was not in fashion, it wasn't vogue, and the same goes today. So uh, there's already at that time there was a disconnect between the quality of sound that you get from your system and the money you spend on it, and that quality just, I mean, that disconnect still continued even to this day, and the labels attached on different gear, they are making less and less sense since then. So after that, it was not enough to own a stereo. They had to come up with something to, like to incentivize people to spend even more money on stereo gear. And why you have to change, because stereo is not enough. You need high fidelity, because the stereo is not, it's just low fidelity or consumer fidelity, who knows what. But now this is high fidelity. And what is not that well known is that the what is high fidelity was not really well defined. There were some guidelines that the companies who started making this high fidelity movement, like certain frequency extension, 60 hertz to 16 kilohertz, but it was not really defined what the dB range, like plus minus how many dBs should it be within that. So minus 10 dB. So in the beginning, someone started saying, okay, let's just make it minus 10 dB. And then in the more modern days, okay, it turned to plus and minus 3 dB. But it was a long process, since it started with just a really broad expectation from your amplifier and loudspeakers, and then it became a plus minus 3 dB. So they tightened the dB boundary so that it's not just up and down like big waves, like rocky differences, like 10-day differences between a smaller region, but much smaller differences, just 3 dB instead of 10. And they widened, instead of 60 hertz, now down to 20 hertz, and 16 kilohertz up to 20 kilohertz. So a much wider range, much tighter. So that's what now people would consider high fidelity of like plus minus 3 dB, 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. But that's just the bulk. It means that your system can reproduce a simple signal with within that much fluctuation within those boundaries. It doesn't say anything about what it can do with complex music, and it doesn't say anything of how clear the mid-range is, how clear each of the region is, what's the dynamic range of the system, nothing at all, nada. So it doesn't mean much, but usually what it implies is that if it can do from 20 to 20 and within a tight margin of fluctuations in the dB range, then it must be at least, up to some standard, because it's not easy to do that. In fact, it's really hard. From an amplifier, it's not hard. Any junk amplifier can do that, even much tighter. Just apply the mother of feedback on it, and you can like literally go dive in the trash can, get any dirt junk of an amplifier, throw a lot of feedback on it, and it becomes a 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz plus and minus 0.1 dB amplifier. But it doesn't mean it will sound any good. It means just it's been like totally killed with feedback, or not. I would say maybe like straight jacketed with feedback, and it will have a straight jacketed sound. And some people love that straight jacketed sound, and it's perfect, because if you love that, then it means the world is your oyster. For almost no money, you can have any amplifier that will satisfy your needs. And it would be called a high fidelity amplifier already. And then as the high fidelity era reached, really this sticker was put on more and more junk equipment, which were kind of like that. Oh yeah, it's high fidelity. It has that, that frequency range extension, but it sounds really poor. It's not really good. So what can we do about it? Oh, no, let's call, not just use measurements, which didn't work. Yeah, we can make sure that gear measures up to a certain standards, but whether it will sound good or not, those measurements are not a guarantee for it. So it's kind of like guaranteeing that a car has 4 wheels, but it won't guarantee at all. It won't even guarantee whether it will turn or not. So when you try the ignition, it will not. So what audiophiles were doing, instead of calling a car good depending on the number of tires it has, they said, okay, just let's listen to it. And it's kind of like driving a car. Let's drive it. If it drives well, it's a good car. That's how the term audiophile became used. And those who coined this term, they meant it in this way. And that was this audiophile movement soul. Okay, we are calling that gear audiophile, which have like an audibly higher sound quality than the vast majority of the equipment on the market. And now you start to see a trend that whenever there's a new name given to the top segment of audio, is just to make a difference for a new segment of gear to be marketed to a more elite clientele. So in the beginning we had the mono gear, and then the stereo came out. Ooh, now this is exclusive, and for those who can upgrade. But not everyone could go to stereo. Very few people in the beginning. Later on, as decades went by, everyone had stereos. But when it came out, it was a really niche thing, and it was really like a snob thing to own a stereo gear. And then when this high fidelity movement started, it was really like, whoa, I have a high fidelity system. It's not just a stereo anymore. I'm stepping up big time. And then, oh, now I have an audiophile system. Oh, yours is just high fidelity. That's nothing. Stereo, come on, that's a joke. Mono, what? Are you, stuck in a stone age? So that's just the progression of how to label more and more niche segments of customers who are interested in audio. And the first invention going to stereo from mono was basically a technological change of trying to use multiple channels to improve the scope of the presentation, which does work. It does change how you present the sound stage, but the way it is set up in people's home, it was not working. Now, when audiophiles set up the speakers, you have to really set them up in a way that makes a statement in your room. And in an average consumer's home, that's not happening, and that's why that is always there's some disconnect there as well. And I think that's what is the main difference between an audiophile and then the consumer, is that the consumer just maybe buys the same audiophile gear, but they just shove it in the cupboard, somewhere in the speakers standing in the entertainment center or stuck wherever they are. And an audiophile, gets the stand, places them carefully, and make sure that everything is in its place, everything. And some people would say, why? What's the difference? And I say, the difference is everything, because the gear itself is really nothing. It's the interaction of your audio gear with your room that makes your stereo system complete. And it's not just your room, your audio gear, but your room, your audio gear, where is it there, and you. So all three, these three critical are the three components of your audio system. And you have to take all of three into account. And you cannot just think of which are the best speakers. No, that's rubbish, doesn't make any sense whatsoever for you. For you, the question is, which are the speakers that work well in my room, in the room that you want to place them there. And you can look for something which, like, people look now as endgame speakers, like real-zone audio Panasonic speakers, but if I would put them in this room, first of all, they wouldn't even fit in. But even if they fit in, and I'm squeezed to this much area, they would sound absolutely awful, because there's no space for them to breathe, there's no space for them to sit, and so that's why that's really critical, that you set it up, that it matches your room, and what you have as a room stereo interface, that it matches your personality, what you want to hear, first and foremost, what you want to hear is if you say, I want to hear the best, that means nothing, less than nothing, because you say it to 5 people, for all of them, best will mean something different, and you want to say, no, I want to stick to the facts. I want the amplifier or system that is a fact, that it's the best. Now, what is a fact? The fact is something that is true for you. Let me just reiterate it again. Fact is something that is true for the person who is looking at that object, event, or something under your scrutiny. So if it's true for you, then it's a fact. But when you are looking at other people, okay, what is best for me? No one can tell you, because it becomes a fact only when it becomes under your scrutiny. So you go there and you listen and you experience, now that's best for me. Okay, now I got it. But then you take it in your room, now it's not best, because that's what you heard was in a very different room. And when you put it in your room, it might not work there. So that's why audio is such a big journey, because the only person who can tell what is best for you is you. And you have to experience it personally. And you have to rack up these experiences to get to know what are there for you, what are the levels that you experience, and how to make it work for you at a price range you can afford, in a time that you can afford, because let's be fair here, like, if you want to just go full commercial way, it can cost you a lot of money to find what is best for you. Why is that? It's because when you spend more money on something, there's a much bigger chance that you can have a higher quality component, because they can put higher quality parts in it. They can put higher quality engineering. But just because something is more expensive, it doesn't mean they did all of that. Maybe they just put more marketing in it. So that's why you need to do your own research and put your own time into finding out about your gear. And then when you do that, you will realize that that you need to match the components, make sure that they can play along with it together. It's like putting together musicians in a band. You cannot just pick like someone from Metallica and put it together with Luciano Pavarotti and have Arturo Toscanini conduct them and expect that it will be the best, music experience in the world, and put like Neil Peart in the drums in it, and you will find out that that poor Neil Peart has passed away already, and Toscanin is gone too. So there's a lot of things like that, and when you think about that, that's the way in audio too, because like some of the most desirable components, like some Western electric drivers, that company doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. Or like Artec Voice of the Theater, those are gone. You have to resurrect all of that, and there's a lot of things that you just have to dig yourself into it if you want to find out the best for you. And if you just go at the direction, just someone called it best, I get it. You might be happy with it, but you will never learn if it's the best for you or not. So anyway, we were stuck with audiophiles. Where can we go? After a while, just being an audiophile wasn't enough, and the high-end mania started to just take over the audiophile world. If you have like an NAD amplifier, or like a small Arkham CD player, or like a Bauer Wilkins VM301 speakers, that's not enough anymore. You need high-end, which is the most expensive end of the audio, and which is the highest performance. So now what audiophile meant like a couple of decades before, high-end audio was the rage. Then basically when I got into this audio roller coaster in the mid 90s, then it was oh, but then you couldn't afford that. I mean, I couldn't even afford basic audio for engineers. Even like that DM301 speakers, that was already, that was a dream for me, which I couldn't really realize. And that's why I started looking into, okay, what I can build myself. If I don't have that kind of money to buy these things, I can maybe afford it or not. And that's how I found the void pipe. And about void pipes, so that's how I built my void pipes, and looking into what kind of amplifiers can you buy. And I really wanted 2 bubble fires, so I got a pair of, not a pair, just a single one, stereo, but one, the Dynaco Stereo 70, and started with that, working on it. So that's how I approached it, and I knew that at that time that was not considered high-end audio. Some people didn't even consider audiophile the Stereo 7 anymore. It was just stereo, playing or stereo gear before the audiophile mania started, and like it's over. Who cares? And after a while, what is happening is that even high end just became commonplace. So in the mid 90s, early 2000, if you said I have a high end system, it really meant that you are like above the clouds. You have something like top of the game, or say end game. And then look what's happening nowadays, even in 2015. Like a pair of yet high-end yet affordable components from ship. So this is a time when we are living in times when high-end is not high-end. The low-end is also called high-end. So when we call the low-end at $400, that's like a price of introductory gear into this audiophile persuasion. So if the low end is already the high end, then we need to come up with a new terminology for the real high end that high end used to be. So as you see, all of these expressions, starting with stereo through high end and endgame, they are just the politically correct versions of how we say in the current times the cream of audio. Basically. That's what it is. And they are just all just the politically correct expressions, and they will go out of date within 10 years or so. I think they will go out of date even faster as we progress. I think we can imagine that endgame will last even less than the term high end lasted. So from there we are now at endgame. So you see, Jay is also using endgame. I don't know if it's an official thing or not, but everyone in the media is using the term endgame. I also started copying it and talking about endgame because people understand what it is. They know that you don't need a dictionary to look up what it is. Everyone has different ideas what endgame is. And Steve Gutenberg recently made a video and he presented a system that is the endgame dream of many today. So if you would say like what is endgame and probably like do a questionnaire to 1,000 audiophiles, I think this system would be what would come up as #1 in the endgame list, sampling 1,000 random audiophiles. And I would say like audiophiles who have heard a system like that, because if you haven't heard and you ask somebody of something they haven't heard, it's nonsense, because it's kind of like asking someone about heart surgery who is not a doctor. It's a very easy get. But I know from experience that out of 20 audiophiles who have been audiophiles for 20, 30 years, so they have heard hundreds upon hundreds of systems. And when they hear this system, I heard this system, not this exact same, but another Chronosonic and then D'Agostino system, and it is truly spectacular. And when 20 experienced seasoned audiophiles hear it, out of 20, at least 15 will say that is the best system, that is the endgame system that they heard. That's the best they heard in their entire life. And how best it is? By a small margin? No, by a very large margin. There's not even a competition. And I would have to say that those people who will say that are those who have not really experienced any of the DIY part about modified gear, hearing unusual gear like Altex and things like smaller manufacturers who like Bruce Edgar, the late Dr. Bruce Edgar, who designed horn speakers, horn systems. And people who hear that, they just say, yeah, that's a lot better than what we see here. But if you have not heard things like that, then what is true for a regular audiophile who is stuck in the commercial arena of audiophilia, for you, if you just want to open your wallet, give money for it, this is the best you can get. And you don't have to do any more research on it. Just look up what this is. This is the best you get. And if you have like 60 plus 1 in front in the bank, then you can have it. But for those of you who can afford it, if you want, just go for it. But I have one thing that you must listen to, is that don't just buy the stereo system. This room, look at this room, and you need to build the room around it as well. Because if you just put it in a random room, it will sound like, I wanted to say crap, but it probably won't sound like crap, but it will sound very, very far from what it could be. It will not sound endgame if your room is not endgame. Your room is a critical part of it. And if you want an endgame room, that will be probably a couple $100,000 matching endgame room for this endgame audio system. Now, I started on this journey because on my latest video, where is it? It is here, one. Endgame breaks the game. And I had really fantastic comments on it. And one of the comments was Torsten's of Snipple Audio from Germany, and he posted about the Wilson and then D'Agostino system, the one that we also saw on the Audiofiliac spot, and he is perfectly correct with that this is the canonical endgame, this system. And of course, as what he says there is true, that there's like 5 records that it can pay, and down there Frank said that he knows someone who has a system like that, and he has 3 records and that's it. And because everything else sounds awful on it. So what is also true with this type of I'm sorry, this is to come, but when you go for this type of system that is considered as the end game of the commercial audiophile dream, you also need end game recordings. So recordings that are specially made for this system, and this system is specially made for those recordings, and it doesn't work for anything else. So here we are talking about something really special, really niche. We are talking about ultra specialization. So we are not talking about a stereo system anymore that plays music. We are talking about a system that plays only music designed for this system, and vice versa. This system is designed to play that specific kind of music and nothing else. And if you just want a stereo system to have this experience, to experience those 3 to 5 recordings, and you want to spend $1 million to experience 5 recordings, that's fine, and you go for it, and you will have the greatest show, because that's what I can share, is that this system really provides the biggest show you can get. So it's like very good. There's some NFL slides, like games, like people are playing football, American football, and it is like that. So that's the biggest show of sports in the United States. So the system is the analogy of that. But what are you gaining with it? So you are gaining the ability to experience those recordings in the fullest possible way you can experience. And, for example, like if you go to an amplified concert and you hear the concert, then, and in comparison you listen to it in this system, this will be a much better experience than what that live amplified event was. And to me, when I listened to this system or to those recordings, it really reminded me to have the same experience as I'm having listening to a PA system in a concert. So this system does the best job of providing you the most elaborate experience of an amplified concert, and it will give you the biggest show, but you need a big room for that, specifically designed for the system. And it will not be personal, it will be a very impersonal experience, very big show, and it will be interesting, and I really recommend it to everyone to try it, whether you like it or not. And I would say, even myself, I like it. But is it that kind of experience that I want to experience every day? So it's kind of like, I also like coffee. And I like to drink coffee twice a year. That's it. I like to, smell the aroma, but taste is okay too. But I'm not addicted to it. I'm not an coffee addict. And I just don't feel like drinking it more than twice a year. I just drink it twice a year, and I'm happy with coffee. That's it. It's done. Although I'm drinking tea every day, it's like someone's end game might be just a flavor for you in your life. So for me, this type of sound is a flavor that I truly enjoy listening to a couple of times a year. And it's like me, like smelling coffee. If for example, there's like Kona coffee that you can get here. Actually, my boss he passed away already, but he had a coffee farm in Kona, and he had the best coffee I ever had in my life. It was just absolutely fantastic. But so this system is like the Kona coffee for me. I love the aroma, I like to experience it, but it doesn't give me that kind of experience that nourishes me, that nurtures me, that grows me as a human being and connects me to the music. It doesn't connect me to the music. But what it allows me is to actually, it allowed me to behave as a tour de force experience to test my audiophile skills, and I absolutely loved it. And I can tell you guys that after like 10 minutes, I could clearly hear each driver separately and identify what kind of crossover distortion is between each of the drivers. And most people have no clue about that. They don't even can't even hear that there are different drivers. And for me, that's like kind of like one of the highest level of audiophile test is to just like hear what I can hear between the drivers. And it would probably be a fun experience, like to play around with the crossover to see if I can get it lower or not, or make them match better or not. But I do not have this system, and those people who have them don't really want anyone touching them, so I'm not in danger of doing such mods anytime soon, so don't ask about that. Although I have to add that I do have a friend who is a co-worker of mine, and also he's a hematologist, and he has reason audio speakers, not the Panasonic. He has big wheel zones, and he also has big amplifications with it. And he says, I haven't heard that yet, but he says that it doesn't sound anything like Europe, like typical wheel zones. He says it's extremely musical, and he is a hardcore cello fanatic. He loves the sound of cello, and he said it produces amazing cello. So that's something for those of you who do not like Wilson Audio and think that it's just a show and nothing else. No, you can take it beyond the show and also like get it into a musical fashion, musical representation, but you need to put in those. So this person, he is a very, very experienced audiophile and probably knows a lot more than many of the company engineers and designers today on how to match and synergize components. So that's what it takes. And then actually he is rebuilding and modifying the version system. He went that far. Anyway, what else did I want to share with you? Of course, what I wanted to share is about Torsten's channel, Snake Oil Audio. He has a German channel, and he has really awesome podcast. It's in German language, but you can put like subtitles and auto translate, and then you can enjoy it in English language as well. And it's really, he has really long videos, but it's really worth to listen to them. And I had the honor to be part of one of his videos, so he made an interview with me. It's this video, Snake Oil Audio Podcast, really episode. And he was super duper nice because he also shared it with me. So both of us posted it. So we posted it on both of our channels at the same time. But we post the link for both his link that came out on his channel and the one that came out on his channel. And in this video, we really talk a lot about and what we think about the, what what is it, my goal with audio? What do I think of this? What my experience is here? And I there's a lot more to say about high end and end game, but I just want to say for everyone, just don't get really stuck on the terminology, because things are just there's a lot of effort on political correctness about it, whether you are correct or not, and who thinks how the people look at facts differently, and how people saw an expression like audiophile 10 years ago, 20 years ago, how they will see 10 years later. It changes vastly. So all of it is kind of like a big fuzzy adventure. And what the gist of it is for today is that what endgame is today in the society's mind, if we distill the audiophile society from today, then this is what is the endgame today. That's what community is called endgame. However, as you saw, Torsten's comment and Frank's comment and my comment, my live comment now too, is that this system is not suitable to play your music library. It is suitable to play a very narrow collection, maybe 3 to 5 records, and actually you can play more on it, because when we listen to them, everyone brought their recordings, of course, audiophile recordings, and all played actually quite decently. There were some that were in, but not bad. You could, but there were still some which are like these 5 records that just really just stick out. Wow! And this is a system that will make you to listen to only those 3 recordings, and will also make you to listen for the sound and not for the music itself. You will just listen for how it sounds, and you want to just listen more and more of how it sounds, and just repeat it every day. And to me, that's kind of like a drug addiction, because it doesn't give any wisdom for you. It does not change my life. So for me, what I listen to in music is that for the system, the stereo, or audiophile, or whatever we call it, or mono, to connect me to the music. I don't want the audio gear to be an intermediary between me and the music. I just want it to translate the music for me, so that my mind and my heart, they connect, and I understand, and they make a deeper connection with the music. And even music that I've listened to since I was a child, like Jean-Michel Jarre's Oxygen, then I listen today. What I want is to explore that music from a new angle, and to connect with even deeper than I did before. And when that happens for me, that's my desirable system, and that's what I would, coin as endgame, if that was it. But endgame, that's a really stupid name. What does that even mean? End of the game? What? Kind of like the last game of a football season, or what? Next year there's a new football season, and we start from scratch again. And the team who won this year's game might not even qualify to to play in the next year's game. So it's just so meaningless. And what do you win by the game? The team who wins gets a bunch of money? Yeah. What about your stereo system? Do you get something? No, you pay a lot. So it's an end game for the company who makes that program. But for you, what is it for you? It's end game for the company. But what is it for you? So for me, my dream, I rather call it a dream, not end game. So my dream is connection with the music. And I don't want to hear the stereo system intrude into that connection. So thank you for listening to this rant on the nature of audiophilia, and have an astonishing day. Bye bye.